Okay, guys, well, the next thing that we're going to be looking at in this journey of how to study, or some revision techniques, I suppose, the one that causes probably the most problems, and indeed some people say you shouldn't really even do this at all, is summarizing in your own words. This is probably more relevant for humanities subjects where there is a lot of story or text or written information, like large essays and things to sort of remember, and summarizing is probably a bit more relevant to that. Whereas maybe if you're studying like equations or chemical reactions or something, like there is just a formula to study and remember the formula. I'm sure if you're doing something like biochem, there may be hundreds of these formulas to remember. So maybe summarizing isn't as appropriate there. But summarizing in your own words, a good thing to maybe think about right off the bat is the Cornell method of taking notes in class, and for your revision notes as well. Then transfer these notes into the flashcards that we were looking at in the last topic there. So what is the Cornell method? Well, you kind of split. You can do this with any A4 page, but you can actually buy A4 paper that is ruled out using the Cornell method of note taking. And in one side you have this Q column where your key words and your key questions are. In the other sort of 2/3 of the page you have the note taking column, where your notes in class, where you have key ideas or important dates, people, places, diagrams, pictures, formulas, repeated or stressed information. Usually as a teacher, if I do that with my students, I say this is really, as soon as I say this is really important, I look on Zoom to see who's writing what I'm taking down, or if I'm teaching it face to face, has anyone put pen to paper when I say that? And if they haven't, I'll just pause and say, please do write this down. So repeated or stressed information needs to go in here as well. And then at the bottom, which is really handy, which I wish I had done this when I was in college or in school. Summary of what you're doing up here. Summary of your notes in your own words. Okay, so if you're doing the Cornell method of actually taking notes in class, when it comes to revision time, this part down here is critical. This is where you're probably going to end up making your flashcards out of right off the bat. And it speeds everything up if you do it this way, rather than just one page after another of different formatted and different structured information. One page you've got loads of bullet points, the other page you've got a big diagram, the other page you've got a mixture of things, the other page you've just got a couple of notes scattered throughout the page. If you're using the Cornell method, it means you can easily flick through everything when it comes to revision time, and you even have key questions and key words here that would help with revising, as well as asking the teacher questions. So any questions that you have for the teacher, if you don't get time in class to answer them or ask them, then you can send them a wee email, or maybe discuss it in tutorial groups if you're at college, especially if you're in a big, large, like 200, 300 seater lecture hall. The lecture probably won't allow questions because they could be there all day just answering questions. So yeah, make sure you write down the questions that you have and where they answered, or do you still need help with it? Put a question mark next to it and say, I'll need to follow that up with my teacher as soon as possible. So the Cornell method is excellent. I highly recommend it, even though I never came across it. But a lot of these things, unless somebody tells you about them, you're never going to come across them. And when I was at college or in school, there wasn't really YouTube, and the internet was kind of just starting off. So you really were just left to go away and figure out your own studying. Either if you were lucky enough to buy a book which covered all these things, which I never even thought of doing, I just plodded away and tried to remember everything. So the Cornell method is something I wish I had done for my study. Condense. Challenge yourself to summarize a topic or a page within a limited space, like an A4 or something. Try layering. Do the easiest and simplest facts first. Use them as a foundation before adding gradually more complex information layer upon layer. So yeah, you could do that. Start at the top of the easiest stuff, and as you go down the page, it gets more and more detailed. or indeed start in the middle and work your way out, like a spider diagram or a mind map or something. So layering is an excellent way of doing it. Speaking of mind maps, yep, create your own mind maps. Yeah, there's loads of places, mind maps apps, getrevising.co.uk, Go Conquer that I mentioned before, really, really good. Have a check out Go Conquer if you haven't heard. GOCONQR, Go Conquer. Yeah, I'll probably have a wee link somewhere in the video. Yeah, so use those mind maps or spider diagrams to summarize complicated topics. For example, the melodic features of a set work if you're doing music, or whatever subject you're doing. List the complicated topics. Do this with and without textbooks, or with or without notes. So can you make a mind map on what you learnt today or tomorrow? When you go into class, can you make a mind map without your notes on just what you were taught that day? Just brainstorming, I suppose. Yeah, brainstorming to see how much information you can remember. This is again another good example of active recall, where you're not given any help and you sort of have to just list what you remember, or make a mind map, or brainstorm what you remember. Now, brainstorming's far better, guys, where you're literally just throwing things down on a page. Could be a little image, could be a couple of lines of text, or a little bubble with a word inside of it, or anything at all. Brainstorming is just a blank piece of paper and you and a pencil, and away you go. Just list what you can remember and what you forgot, and anything that you need to sort of follow up on, that you find tricky, find hard, don't know how to revise, or don't understand at all. Yeah. So summarizing in your own words. Not all revision has to be neat. I'm guilty of this. I nearly want everything neat. As you could probably tell, I color coordinate a lot of things, and that just takes a lot of time. But it's a very bad habit I've picked up of, don't let perfection be the enemy of good. Don't let perfection stand in the way of progress. Messy notes. Embrace it before you turn out like me and have to do everything, color coordinated and neat. Messy notes of scrap paper, making a quick mind map in 10 minutes. Jot down ideas, connect with arrows, highlighting with different colors. Not highlighting your notes, not going through, like we were talking about this at the very start, where just going through your class notes and highlighting stuff is not really a good use of time. But like when you're making mind maps and you say, right, that idea there is similar to the idea in this other part of the mind map, or maybe even a flashcard, highlighting this idea and saying that this is similar to another idea in another flashcard. Yeah, that's useful. You're making mental and physical connections there. Yeah, highlighting with different colors can help everything click in your brain. So yeah, embrace the messy notes idea. Read your notes out loud. Record yourself blurting, I suppose, is one way of thinking of it. And listen back on your phone when you're not at your desk. I did used to do this until it just took up a lot of space. I had, that's going back years, and mobile phones didn't have a lot of space really. But now you can easily do this with some of the mobile phones that are out there, which have a lot of storage. So record your notes out loud. You've probably seen it as well in a lot of TV dramas, crime dramas, and thrillers and things, where an FBI agent or something is making a report and they're recording something, or like a doctor's doing it or something, or a journalist. They're all using it as a memory aid as well, recording your notes. Really useful. Yeah, I suppose it's getting a little bit more specific here. Make your own short revision guides if you have time. Go for it. Setting a 2-page limit, then condense, and move to flashcards. Yeah, I tend to do that with students. That's more of a teacher thing, I suppose, where I would ask my students to make a revision guide and then get them to swap with each other, or copy, or maybe take photos of it and send it to me so I can distribute it to the rest of the class. And that way you get an idea of it, like other people's ideas of how to put things together and condense and revise. Yeah, do essays. Now, this is again a little bit more to do with GCSE and A level. There is a couple of things in the music where you have a couple of essays to do. They're not really essays, they're more like extended writing. It's not an English literature or an English exam or anything, where you have to write like an introduction and, you know, the main body and the conclusion and that sort. It's not like that. But there are extended pieces of writing that you'd have to do, and I'm sure there are many subjects out there that you guys are studying which are the same. So practice doing that. If it's going to come up in a test, you should be practicing it as well. Set the time of everything you know about a set work. Now, for me, that's a set work. For you guys, it could be a particular topic, depending on what you're studying. So in history, it may be a particular historical event. List everything that you can think about in that historical event. Or for the sciences, you may want to write down all the different equations and so see, can you remember all of them, or how different things interact with each other. So yeah, there could be loads of ways of approaching this. Again, it's a wee bit like brainstorming and then going back over to see what you've missed. Make mind maps of it, that can help. For GCSE, 1 A4 page with about 3 points about tonality and harmony. Again, this is all music. Instruments used, rhythms that are used, texture. Move all of this to flashcards. And A level, it's almost the same. So yeah, there's a couple of wee things when it comes to doing essays that you should test yourself on. Most of it does tend to be, can you sort of brainstorm the ideas and then reorganize them into sort of an extended writing format. So brainstorm for the first 5-10 minutes. Maybe you might set yourself to do this in 1 hour, and then see, can you rewrite those ideas properly, chronologically, as an essay or as an extended piece of writing. So do a little bit of brainstorming and then think about how you're going to structure your essays. And remember, 12 marks, you should write 12 points, or 15 marks, 15 points, depending on the level that you're doing. Again, more about the music side of things, because this is about summarizing, I suppose. Notate themes rather than memorizing their melodic features. So rather than saying this is the Superman theme, so if you've written it out, you should be able to talk about the use of triplets, or, you know, outlining triads. It's in the key of C major. The leap of a fifth is quite important. There's almost like a dotted rhythm feel here at the end. Da, da, da. So if you can remember how to write out the theme, you've automatically got lots of other things that you can talk about, rather than just writing down, you know, 10 points about the theme and just trying to remember all individual 10 points. So writing out the theme can give you the key, the time signature, the rhythms that are used, interesting intervals or dotted rhythms, or even dynamic changes, you know, so all those things are quite useful. Yeah, can you sing your own lyrics to the melody? Like going back to the GCSE one, there's a piece of music that my GCSE students do, and you guys can do this for any subject you're studying, but for music it's pretty obvious that this is a good way of doing it. The theme is For Unto Us a Child is Born, and it's something like, For unto us a child is born. So really what I do to remember that is D, fifth, rise, fourth, repeated notes. Those are all the musical features, or the melodic features. It starts on a D, falls down a fifth, rises up a fourth, and ends with repeated notes. So 1, 2, 3, 4 things I remember about that theme to this day, just based on the melody itself. So if you can sort of assign lyrics to the melody, but change the lyrics to suit the musical points that you want to remember. Starts on a D, falls a fifth, rises a fourth, repeated notes, then that's going to be half the battle of remembering the musical features. And you guys should think about doing that for other things. I mean, we all know, like even in things like medicine, you know, the hip bone's connected to the whatever it is, the knee bone's connected to the such and such. So going through all the different bones of the body, you know, making a little melodic idea, a little song out of all these points that you're trying to remember really does help. And again, the more wacky and stupid it is, the better, because it only has to make sense to you, and it should sort of be something unique and original for you to remember. After you've written the main themes, play and learn them on your instrument. That's an idea. Can you connect them all together and learn them as a piece of music? I've never done that with my students. I'm going to try it. Maybe not this year, but maybe next year, just to see. I might set that as a performance thing for them. I'll collect all the main themes from all the different pieces of music that they have to study, put them all in the same key, put them all together, or even keep them maybe in their original keys and get them to sort of play through it to see if they can learn the piece off by heart. And then there's another way of learning the main themes, but I suppose that's more of a music thing. Okay, getting back to more general things, the Feynman method. Okay, the Feynman method obviously developed by Dr. Feynman, very well-known scientist, guys, in America, who sort of pioneered this. He was an excellent communicator and teacher, and he had this method of teaching his classes, which were usually packed out with students who wanted, even students who weren't studying his subjects, wanted to come to his classes because he had a brilliant way of explaining things and making it understandable to anybody who wanted to learn a bit more about anything to do with science, I suppose, because he was an expert in so many fields. What do you want to understand? This is the Feynman method. Write out the explanation as if you were teaching it to someone who doesn't understand it. Or explain it to me like I'm a 4-year-old. That's another one I use quite a bit, especially if I don't understand something. So it doesn't have to. The explanation doesn't have to be understandable to a 4-year-old. It's just taking the idea to the extreme. But if you cannot explain what you're teaching to someone who doesn't do the subject, then you don't really fully understand the subject. I think Einstein said something similar about that. You need to be able to explain to anybody what you know, your subject or your topic or whatever it is you're revising. Whenever you get stuck, go back to the material and relearn. Do steps 1 to 3 all over again until you don't need source. Okay, so you don't need a source. So you need to be able to explain it to anybody in the most simplest terms as well. That's the last thing. Simplify by getting rid of technical, convoluted language using analogies as well. We've seen this in a lot of, what do you think of things like Star Trek or something? I know I'm showing my inner nerdiness here, definitely, if I haven't already showed my nerdiness, where you'll hear some really colorful engineering or scientific language used by someone who works in engineering, and you don't have a clue what they're talking about. Warp drives and plasmas and conduits and shield generators and things. And then someone will turn and go, "Oh, it's like pumping too much air into a balloon." That's what we mean by the Feynman method, the analogy that anyone can understand. So in this case, the audience who don't have a clue what they're talking about. I think actually Futurama did a really good sort of piss take of that if you want to check it out. But yeah, the Feynman method, obviously a really good technique, really forces you to summarize something down into simplistic language that you can understand and anyone else can understand, and hopefully then makes it easier to remember. Yep. Post-it notes are the ultimate one-fact summary. They can be stuck to your mind maps, they can be stuck to your revision notes or your exercises or anything at all. Your mind maps, essay plans, revision guides, flashcards, but you should need to use them properly, and you should use them. So you can see here in this picture actually that the answers are underneath the I think that's really clever actually. The answers are underneath the post-it notes in this person's class notes here. So that's pretty good way of doing it. Another way of using them, put them around your room or your house on objects and do a mental journey from one object to the next object and try to recall the facts that are on those post-it notes. So again, it's a wee bit like the memory palace or the journey method thing, where you might take a room in your house. It doesn't have to be your own bedroom, it could be the living room or wherever, and you can physically put those post-it notes on objects throughout that room, but then see, can you go in your mind's eye a journey through that room, and a lamp has a post-it note on it and maybe a couple of facts about something on that post-it note, and then on to the next one, maybe the television or something, or the sofa, or a cup of tea or something. It could be anything at all in your house. So it's a good way of assigning objects as well. Remember we talking about this, the picture superiority effect, having a picture assigned to a fact or a couple of facts at the most, and try and create some sort of mental journey or even a good crazy story about it. Have some sort of action happening between one object and the next. That'd be really good. I've put down here again, guys, all the mnemonic devices we've already looked at. The reason being is that these are actually really good for summarizing your own notes as well. They're good to use in the flashcards. We've already seen these in the flashcard topic we were looking at earlier, but you can use them as well for summarizing your own notes. Yeah, so obviously I'm gonna put them back in there again. And the familiar object association, that's another good thing, sort of linked to mnemonic devices. Use objects and assign particular words or phrases to different parts of it, and again make a physical journey, and it can help with definitions of something. So you could have a particular, even your own hand or your own body or something, like, you know, have a particular fact starting off with your thumb. Can you move to your finger where the answer is going to be? So you've assigned the answer to there. And if you do that over and over and over, the physicality of it, the sort of kinetic way of learning, actually solidifies the topics you're trying to study in your memory as well. So there's some people who are visual learners, some who are more kinetic learners, like physically doing something helps them remember it. So this is another familiar object association can help with that. So that is some of the things we use for summarizing our own words. Again, the main things I've put in bold there, or bigger border: condense, use layering, mind maps, and spider diagrams. So suppose the main difference between spider diagrams and mind maps is that usually in mind maps you are just sort of sticking to maybe a couple of words per bubble. So mind maps tend to be a bit more simplistic, whereas spider diagrams tend to deal more with you know, sentences and things. So like this would be more sort of almost like a spider diagram, I suppose. So they're really very similar, to be honest. But yeah, so using mind maps or spider diagrams, recalling. Obviously, everywhere we do this, for your making your notes, summarizing your notes, practice your recalling. Can you close the book and remember what you've just been studying, or even 10 minutes ago or the day before? Can you also do blurting as well, to sort of you record yourself with those answers and recalling? Or do you need to look at your notes more? What do you keep forgetting? Make a flashcard of what you keep forgetting. Do essay practices, of course. If it comes up in your exam, you need to practice that stuff. Set yourself a time. Set yourself a particular topic that you want to look at, things that you find difficult, and do like an essay. Write everything that you can about it. Brainstorm it first and then rewrite it in order. Use the Feynman method. Nearly everybody does. Especially teachers do this as well if they find they can try to always find a better way of explaining something. Use post-it notes in various ways, either through physical objects throughout your house or indeed in your own mind maps and revision notes and class notes. Use your post-it notes either just to cover answers or indeed to have the answers written on them. Use mnemonic devices as always. And of course, the Cornell method of taking notes in class is an excellent way to start summarizing things. Okay, so that's some of the ideas I hope you'll find useful for summarizing. Okay everyone, thanks very much for watching. There are plenty of other videos on my channel that deal with this subject and other topics you may be interested in. So if you want more, please like and subscribe. Leave any questions or suggestions you may have in the comments section below, and I'll do my best to get round to them. So do let me know if there are other things you would like me to cover, and I'll see you again next time.